वेलकम व्यूअर्स प्रोग्राम 180 डिग्री के साथ मैं हूं अहमद परवेज़। हमारे आज के मेहमान हैं, ना तो वो सिर्फ खाली हमारी शो की मेहमान है, बट शी इज़ ऑल्सो अ गेस्ट इन द सिटी, अ गेस्ट इन पाकिस्तान। एंड वी हैव विद अस द एक्टिंग हाई कमिश्नर फॉर ग्रेट ब्रिटेन, मिस Elaine Elison Blake, and welcome Her Excellency, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for being with us.
No, it's a pleasure to be here.
And so what brings you to Lahore?
What brings me to Lahore? Two things. Partly to celebrate the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth will have been on the throne for 60 years. And we always give a big party every year to mark the anniversary of the Queen.
And that is in all the cities or in Lahore?
Lahore, Islamabad and Karachi. And so we do that every year, and this year she will have been on the throne for 60 years, so we're giving an even greater party than before.
So we will discuss that more a little further.
We will discuss that later.
That.
But the other reason I'm here really is to celebrate the relationship between the UK and Pakistan, and in particular the relationship between the UK and the Punjab. This is my first official visit to Lahore.
Right. And when were you posted to Pakistan?
I was posted to Pakistan 7 months ago in October. I came on a private visit to Lahore, so I managed to see many of the sites and slip around the city unnoticed.
So when you got your orders for posting, like what were your feelings going to Pakistan?
I was really very excited. I'll let you into a secret, which is that my grandfather was with the British Army in what was then India and spent 8 years in Rawalpindi and Lahore. Now, it was 80 years ago, so everything has changed quite a lot. But when I was a little child, I used to go to my grandparents' house, and he had lots of photographs of him in Lahore and Rawalpindi.
So and they seemed fascinating to you?
They seemed amazing and fascinating. He never managed to come back after independence, and he always regretted not being able to do that. So when the job came up, I spoke to my father. We didn't tell my mum, and I applied.
And now you're here.
Now I'm here.
I was reading a little bit about you. Before joining the diplomatic service, you were part of the Ministry of Defence. So why this sudden shift? Like, what prompted you to sort of change lines?
I always wanted to join the diplomatic service, but they have a very, very stiff competitive exam. And I'm not a great linguist. And I didn't think I would pass the exam. So I didn't apply for the Foreign Office when I came out of university. And I applied to the British Civil Service, and the Ministry of Defence chose me. Okay. So I had a great time, got to work alongside the Foreign Office in many postings, and applied for a job with them.
And since I lived in UK also, I had a chance to study there, and I keep on meeting people from Britain. The perception that they have of Pakistan is actually very different from what the reality is. I mean, they think it's like a war zone we're living in with bombs exploding everywhere. So why do you think they feel that?
Well, I would almost feel like asking the question back at you. I mean, I think, and I will ask you because, bad news sells newspapers. Bad news attracts people. I think there is a lot of good news coming out of Pakistan, but often it's overshadowed, as you say. I mean, there are many problems here, the extremism, the violence that blights people's lives. I think every country in the world actually suffers from bad media stories, but I think the more that people who serve, like me, who serve here, can explain to people, actually there's another Pakistan. And
what have you done to sort of dispel this impression?
I regard myself as a great advocate for Pakistan back in the UK. I spend a lot of time talking to colleagues, families, when I travel around. Usually when I say to someone, yes, I'm posted to Pakistan, they sort of say, oh, who did you upset? And I have to say, no, it's just the most amazing job. So part of my job and our job here is also to actually sort of make sure that people know the other part of Pakistan.
The environment in Pakistan is quite different and challenging from maybe the other countries you've been posted at or you've visited. So what challenges are you facing here? And especially as a woman in a very male-dominated society.
I grew up my father was in our Air Force. My brother is in the Air Force. My brother-in-law was in the Navy. So I grew up in quite a male-dominated, even in the UK, quite a male-dominated environment, then the Ministry of Defence. So I'm used to that. But one of the things that I do know here is that you have an enormous number of very strong female role models, including Prime Minister Bhutto.
We have a speaker currently.
A speaker who is. And there are lots of businesswomen, entrepreneurs, teachers. I think there are a lot of problems, as you say, for women there. Women's education, the proportions of women who actually manage to complete school economic marginalisation. I think there's much more you can do. There are huge, it's a huge resource for the country.
Is this your first posting in this part of the region?
It is. I've previously served in Europe and the United States. So.
And so are you facing any difficulty being a woman, or not really?
I haven't, but then I'm conscious that I'm a very sort of privileged animal. I'm an international diplomat, so the people I meet actually are usually, they're pleased to meet me. Everywhere I've gone though, I've met nothing but hospitality and friendliness. Okay,
let's talk about the celebrations, the Diamond Jubilee celebrations. It's a very interesting story how Queen Elizabeth II came onto the throne, especially her father. So if you can you just briefly tell us how she, like when Edward abdicated, and how it happened and how she ended up?
Yes, the king that would have been Edward VIII abdicated because he wanted to marry a divorced woman, and in those days British society felt that you couldn't have a king.
So men have been paying a heavy price for women ever since.
Well, you can say that, I can't possibly agree. And that meant that the Queen's father, who was his younger brother, became king, and then he took Britain through the Second World War, and was sadly, I think he died very young, and the Queen came to the throne in 1952. I think that's 51. She was crowned in 52. She'd been travelling in the Commonwealth when she got the news of her father's death, and she went back to Britain. Had two very small children, so I think she really was an example of a working mother. Right in those days.
So the celebrations that we'll be having here, is it just one big party, or do you have something planned up? What's the plan for it?
What's the plan for it? We've had a number of different sort of parties, which we do all the time. We're also trying to do some outreach, working with Pakistanis. I had dinner with some people in Islamabad yesterday, Pakistanis, British Pakistanis from Punjab, and they said to me, it's the Queen's Jubilee, we'll come to you with some ideas, because she's the head of the Commonwealth, she's, the relationship between Britain. So I think there's that. There are many celebrations going on in the UK, and the other thing I think that is quite important, because it brings an important point about the legacy of the Jubilee. It's not just about parties, it's about actually trying to use the interest in across the Commonwealth in the sorts of issues that I think the Queen and Prince Philip, Prince Charles have sort of put a lead on, which is around youth, sport, age with dignity. So one of the things that has been launched this year is the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Trust, and the government of Pakistan has appointed a representative to take this forward, and the idea is to use this year to raise funds, which then will be put behind programs designed to make the life of Pakistanis better, and so that the Jubilee won't just be about parties and celebration, although that's really important.
No, but as part of the celebrations, many members of the royal family have been visiting states of the Commonwealth. So will we be hosting any royal members here in Pakistan?
There are no immediate plans for royal members.
But why not then?
Oh, there are 189 countries across the globe, so they can't go everywhere. I don't know if you saw it.
But this is a big part of the Commonwealth.
It's a very big part of the Commonwealth. We've had, I don't know if you saw, there were pictures. I mean, there's been very good Pakistani representation in the UK for some of the celebrations there. And the Queen actually has visited Pakistan, I believe, twice. I think she visited when she hadn't been on the throne very long in the late 1950s or early 1960s, perhaps 1961, and then came back again, I think, in 1997. So I'm not saying that 2 visits is all your lot, but I think also because she's now 86, and although she still carries out a very full schedule.
Why not any other member of the royal family?
I will have to ask them and get back to you. But I mean, I will.
In modern day Britain, is actually there any role left for the monarchy now?
I think they have an enormous. Clearly, constitutionally, the Queen has some constitutional roles which are more or less symbolic. But I do think the royal family carry out an enormous amount of engagements for charities, and I do think actually that they encourage British people. I mean, the work by the princes around disability, disadvantaged people. So I do think they have a role, and I think also, they're our head of state, so they do sort of, you know,
Is she the only monarch who's been on the throne this long, or have there been others before her?
I think she hasn't quite overtaken Queen Victoria, who of course was Empress of India, and you know, in the Lahore Museum.
How many years was she on the?
I'd have to check.
We're pretending to do a history test here.
Yes, indeed. I am a historian, so you might expect me to know. I think because the Queen will have been 60 years. Victoria, it might be 61 or 62, but.
So essentially, like, what does Queen Elizabeth II's reign represent?
Oh, I think it's been such an incredibly long reign. When she came to the throne, Britain was coming out of austerity and the war, and I know that there were, because my parents were growing up then, a new Elizabethan age, a flourishing of culture. You know, people started prosperity, the economy got better. So I think she represented that. But so I think now her reign, I could ask you, you know, modern Britain, a mixture of traditions and innovation.
And so who's next in line in the succession? Because there's a lot of talk that we've been hearing in the media that it might go directly to William and not to Charles.
Well, there's always talk. The Prince Charles is the heir.
Is the heir.
And so and he will be the next king.